Is Tyson McFall Woncat. I am a senior academic advisor in AAE, and I have one of my fellow advisors with me. I'll let her introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Allard. I'm also Senior Academic Advisor in the School of Aeronautics and Astronautics.
All right, so we'll go ahead and get started with just a short video.
As the new head, I'm really humbled by this opportunity. What a great time in aerospace. It's a great time to lead this group of faculty, our outstanding students, and our staff, leverage our great reputation in industry, to have people come to Purdue, work on projects, look for partners to work on those projects. Outer space is really expanding right now. The ideas in commercial space, the ideas of exploring in our solar system and beyond. Having safe, efficient air transportation and making that sustainable is a big deal at the moment. The role that aerospace plays in defense and security is incredibly important. All these new opportunities that are popping up, discussions of urban air mobility, of global communication and global connectivity through satellites, all enabled by aerospace. There's no better place to be working on that than here at Purdue. As the new
So we do have 900 plus, just over 900 undergraduate students and just over 600 graduate students. That's including master's and PhD. So one of the larger programs at Purdue. Here you see some of our rankings. So some of these are for 2020, some are for 2021. They do rank a little bit earlier than the year starts. So number 5 undergraduate program for AAE and number 6 graduate program. And then a university as a whole has been ranked number 4 best public university that pays off the most and number 5 most innovative school. And then we have a little pop quiz. So in the chat, Purdue is known as the cradle of astronauts. So how many astronauts do you think Purdue as a whole has produced? So in the chat, put your guess. Mostly in the 20s, low 20s. There's one that's a little closer. Ah, there's somebody who's very certain. So yes, it is 26 as of this year. Now, how many of those are from AAE? Graduated from our department. Anybody got a guess? We got one guess. Any others? Oh, Catherine knows her stuff. We are at 16. And here you can see those 16 AAE graduates listed there. And you can find more about them on the Purdue website. Of course, some of the more famous one, or the most famous one, Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon. And normally we would be doing some of these presentations in the AAE building, which is the Armstrong Hall of Engineering. We've also got Beth Moses. She is the first female commercial astronaut in February 22nd of 2019. So commercial astronaut meaning she did not go up with NASA. She went up with Virgin Galactic. And so this is a new title that will be becoming more prevalent as we go. And then we also have Laurel O'Hara. She became a NASA astronaut January 10th, 2020. She was inaugurated. She has yet to go up, but she is currently training for a mission. She graduated with her master's in 2009, so she's our most recent graduate who is part of the astronaut program. Of course, you don't have to be an astronaut if you go into AAE. So there's all different types of jobs that you can get. Here's just a sampling of some of the job titles that our newly graduated seniors received. And right now we have data from May 2019 that shows the average salary of a job right out of school with your bachelor's is 70 grand. And there are hundreds, thousands of different companies that you can go work at, and we have alumni across the world. These are just some of the more popular, more well-known companies that you can go to work for. So, how do you get there? So, our degree is 4 years. That is 4 years, including the FYE year. So, 4 years total and 130 credits. And that will get you a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical and Astronautical Engineering. We are an ABET accredited program, which means that you're not just getting a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, but you're getting a specific engineering degree. So, Aeronautical and Astronautical Engineering will actually be on your diploma. And you do get both. You don't have to decide between aeronautical or astronautical. You will take classes in both and be qualified to get jobs in both industries. Here's examples of course titles that you'll be taking during your time in our degree. So we have a good smattering of classes there from design through dynamics to propulsion. And those classes all fall under 6 areas of specialization. So during your senior year in our plan of study, we give you a lot of variability to make the plan what you need it to be for your own particular interests, meaning that there will be 5 classes, 15 credits that you get to pick which classes you take. So instead of us telling you what you have to take and everybody having the same classes on their transcript, you get to specialize the degree towards your interests. And so you'll pick from one of these 6 areas to specialize in. There's aerodynamics, which is looking at how air moves around an object. There's astrodynamics, which is looking at when you have a satellite up in space, how do you keep it pointing where you want it to, and how do you get it to go where you want it to? There's propulsion, which is how to launch large hunks of metal either into the air or into space. Structures and materials, which is looking, of course, at what all of these vehicles are made of, how to make them sustainable, how to make them last, how to make them safe. Autonomy and control is how to actually control those objects, so either in space or in air, and whether it's controlled by humans or whether it's controlled by an AI system. And then we have aerospace systems design, which is sort of putting all of these together. So this is the area where they take all of the research, all of the planning, and they put it all together. Because you might have one team designing the wheel and another person designing the wing, but you have to make sure that they all fit together. So during your sophomore and junior year, you'll take classes in all of these areas to help you figure out which ones you like the best. And then in your senior year, you'll get to take classes in those areas that you get to pick from some really long list of course options that we have. So you can take classes that are specifically interesting to you. And we also have some really cool classes. We have AAE 418, which is our zero gravity flight experiment class. One of our seniors went up in November 2020 and he got to experience zero G there. And you can see the experiment floating there in front of him. That green stuff inside is actually Nickelodeon slime. So the zero gravity flight experiment was working with a local classroom of young school children to come up with an experiment that they wanted to see. And they wanted to know what would happen to Nickelodeon slime in zero G. And so the class members designed that capsule there, came up with the experiment, and then one of the lucky students got to actually fly with it. We also have design, build, test courses, which are just what they sound like. You design something, you actually physically build it, and then you get to test it and see if it works. And then we also have a class in your senior year called Senior Design. This is something that every student will take, and you get to pick whether you want to do a spacecraft senior design or an aircraft senior design. And there's different projects each semester. For fall of 2018, the goal was to design a UAV capable of VTOL and transition to fixed wing horizontal flight. So we have some examples of that for you to watch. So that was an example of a pretty successful flight, especially since part of the goal was not to land successfully. Then we have another example of a different team. So you can see that even in senior design, the projects can be quite difficult, and actually building something physically can be challenging. And this team was able to eventually get off the ground and perform the goal successfully, but it's just kind of a funny video. Then, in the spacecraft version of senior design, there have been various projects over the years. This was the project in spring 2020. So the goal was to establish a human transportation system to and from Mars that included a living habitat, communications, and a multi-vehicle taxi operation. So they had different teams that designed the cycler vehicle with the habitat for people to live in for months at a time while they traveled. They had people that designed communications and how those satellites would work together, and then people in another group working on the tethers and the taxi vehicles to actually get down from the cycler vehicle to Mars and back. So, very intense projects for those senior design that think of all different things. Of course, for the spacecraft version, you don't always get to build something in person, but you get to do some really cool graphics. We also have a lot of student organizations in our department. So there is the Aeronautical and Astronautical Student Advisory Council that has leadership opportunities and can help design some of the get togethers and some of the seminars that happen in the department. There's also Purdue Pilots Inc., which is where if you would like to fly actual airplanes out at the Purdue airport, that is one of the methods that you can get involved. There's the Purdue Aero Robotics and the Purdue Space Programs, which are working on various projects that maybe they're working with a company or they have sponsors or they're working towards competitions. Another example is the Women in Aerospace organization. So these pictures are obviously from pre COVID, but in quote unquote normal times, the Women in Aerospace Club allows an opportunity for the female students in AE or the males, if they'd like to join, to get together, have dinner, talk about the industry, network with individuals and alumni that they bring to campus. And then they also plan and host the Amelia Earhart Aerospace Summit. So that's another great opportunity for leadership there. We also have the Purdue Space Day. Some of you might have done this as a kid. And this year, so in a normal year again, before COVID, we would bring, a couple, I think we're up to maybe 3,000 students, young students to campus for one day and have them go around and do experiments and build things and teach them about space. This year, we had to get a little more creative. And so the Space Day Purdue college students that were coming up with the experiments put the experiments into back boxes and shipped those out to the students so that they could perform experiments at home, and then created YouTube videos and did live sessions to guide the students through how to do the experiment. And then we also have the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, or AIAA. This is a professional organization that brings companies to campus to network and then also talks about recent policies that have been put forth for the aeronautics and astronautics industries, including going to Washington, D.C. to talk with senators and Congress people about education and bringing STEM into classrooms and getting more students interested in aeronautics and astronautics. Again, that picture was taken pre-COVID, so that was our trip in 2019. And then I kind of mentioned the Purdue Space Program before. This is one of their experiments that they've been working on. So this is their liquid rocket team, and this was a test launch several years ago, and they've been working on creating a rocket for a competition. So you can see this is a launch that happened, or a test launch that happened out at Zucrow. Study abroad. So if you're interested in study abroad, there are opportunities to do that with AAE. So we know that the engineering degrees can be pretty structured and pretty strenuous, but all of these countries listed here are countries that we have agreements with at certain universities so that you can go to these universities, take classes that will also count towards your Purdue degree. And so you could go for a whole semester and study abroad, come back and still be on track to graduate in 4 years total. Or if you don't want to go for a full semester, there are lots of options for spring break, Maymesters, summers, and even some winter break options if you'd like to go for a shorter term. But study abroad is definitely an option for you, even if you go into AAE. There's also options for undergraduate research. So, undergraduate research is when you team up with a professor and you work in their lab, and they teach you the fundamentals of how to work in a research lab. And then you assist them and their graduate students on a project that they're working on. This is a photo here of a student working out at Zucrow Labs, so working on propulsion projects. And then you can also work closer to campus on a satellite here, a miniature satellite. And so undergraduate research can be done for hourly pay, or it can also be done for credit. And the credit that you get can be applied to your undergraduate degree. So you can talk with your advisor if you're interested in that. And another thing is that your undergraduate research can be done with an AE professor or with professors in other departments. So we do know that there's a lot of crossover between what AE professors do and ME or other areas as well. So I have some students working in different areas across campus. We also have the combined BS-MS degree. So this allows you to earn your Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical and Astronautical Engineering and your Master of Science in Aeronautical and Astronautical Engineering in as little as 5 years total. So then you would get your bachelor's and your master's in 5 years total. So it doesn't change the amount of credits that you need to get the BS, so 130 if you remember from earlier, and it doesn't change the amount of credits you need for your master's. It's allowing you to use 12 of the credits that you take as a bachelor towards your master's degree. So when we talked about those specializations earlier, when you pick your specialization, let's say you pick propulsion, there are classes during that senior year that you get to pick which propulsion classes you would like to take. And as you pick those classes, some of the options are at the 500 level plus, which is graduate level coursework. And so those 500 level classes, so 501, 502, 511, whatever it might be, can count towards the bachelor's and the master's. And that's how you could graduate with the bachelor's and the master's in 5 years total. So you're kind of double counting those credits. And then just a couple stats here. So you can read over those about the scholarship dollars. And then the Zucrow Labs that I mentioned a few times for research is the largest academic propulsion lab in the world. So if you don't know, it's out by the airport, safely away from campus because they do a lot of explosive work out there. But there's a lot of companies that come and do private research there as well from around the country. So it's a very cool place to get involved with. So I want to give you guys enough time to ask us some questions. So I know that Sarah has been monitoring the chat. So ask away, guys. Do we have any questions, Sarah?
Not yet.
Okay. So is there anything that you guys would like us to expand on or learn more about, or any questions you had for us? I can go back and just show cool videos of rockets. Well, Andrew, I don't know if there's going to be any more questions.
Questions? There we go.
I've got one. Do you need to take a language to study abroad?
No. So here is the study abroad website or the slide. So these countries listed here are where you can go to study for a full semester and study AAE. Now you'll notice that not all of them have, English as their primary language. So you don't have to know the language to study abroad because the classes will be taught in English. So the university will have be taught in English, and the people there will be, bilingual. Now, it does mean that when you leave the university confines, when you go outside of the university areas, you may have some trouble communicating. But a lot of times, what I've heard from my study abroad students is, they make friends really quickly and they find some students, if they go to Germany, they find some students who are bilingual and then they can go around and, do what they need to do. And then as you're there longer, you do absorb some of the language. So you certainly don't let a language barrier hold you back, but do understand that if you go somewhere where English is not the primary language, that, outside of the university, you may have a little bit of trouble communicating, but that's kind of the fun of it.
Is it possible for us to major in two disciplines? Is AAE and computer engineering a good combo?
So you can double major. The only caveat to that is you cannot double major in mechanical engineering and AAE just because there's a lot of overlap there. But if you wanted to double major in AAE and something over in ECE, you could do that. Just have an understanding that it is going to lengthen your time at Purdue because you're still going to have to meet the requirements of both degrees. And on top of that, you're going to have to work out the scheduling so that you can make sure that all those classes fit together. So, my advice is if you wanted to do that, definitely start talking to your advisor right away. The other thing I would recommend is going to career fairs, even the virtual career fairs, and talking with companies and finding out, is that a major combination that they would want or need? So, would you need both of those bachelor's degrees to get the job that you want? And so, talking with companies at career fairs is a really good way to find that out. You can also go to whatever companies you're looking at, whatever your dream company is and your dream job, and look at job postings and see what qualifications they want you to have because you don't want to end up getting two degrees to, find out you didn't really need to.
How do you pick your specialization in AAE?
So in your sophomore and junior year, so once you get into AAE, you will be taking classes in each of those 6 areas. Let me get back to those so you can visualize that. So you'll be taking classes in each of these 6 areas. And so you'll get to have a little bit of knowledge of each of the areas and you'll get to find out, do you like them? Do you not like them? Are you really good at propulsion, really bad at structures? Do you really, really like aerodynamics? Do you find it super interesting, but systems design is not really interesting? So everybody's different. And so you personally will figure out what is interesting to you, and then by the time you get to your senior year, you'll have a pretty good idea of which area you might want to go into. And then you start taking classes in there.
A student is asking, can we request AAE courses when in FYE?
There are some classes that you can take while you're in FYE. And so long as you have the prereqs for the class, you can go ahead and take those. So talk with your FYE advisor when you're looking to sign up for classes and find out, do I have the requirements to take this?
And another question is there a specific study abroad country that is best for studying AAE?
I'm actually going to let Sarah answer this one. She is our study abroad expert.
So the countries that were listed on our slide are all partnership campuses that we have. So they are specific places that we know have AAE classes that students can take. Now, particular countries we've had that are more popular than others will have more courses already evaluated for equivalencies. So you'll already know like potentially what you could take, while as countries that have been, we haven't sent many students to, we may have, less things already evaluated, but we can always evaluate that before you leave. Um, so, I mean, really the ones on the list are your best options. Anything not on that list that is not a partnership, I cannot guarantee that we would have, that you'd be able to take any kind of AAE courses there. Okay. Is AAE 203 a good course to take for fulfilling the engineering breadth requirement?
Um, I am not sure what
I don't
are
know
you,
that.
if you're looking at like the ECE major and wanting to take that as a breadth course, maybe. If the student can clarify what they mean by that, that would be
What
helpful.
that means. From what, let's see. From what I know, mechanical engineering is a generally more versatile, but when is an AAE degree a better choice?
So there is a lot of overlap between mechanical engineering and aero engineering, aero and astro. So aer- aero and astro, we're obviously focusing on things that fly, things that go into the air or out of the atmosphere. So if really have a passion for that, then I would say you definitely want to go into AAE. Now, if you remember from the slide that talked about jobs and recent job titles that our students, our past alumni have gotten, mechanical engineer was actually on there because our students are qualified for a lot of those mechanical engineering jobs as well, because it uses a lot of the same theories and math. So if you look at, those job titles, you can see that even with an AAE degree, you're still eligible to get some of those mechanical engineering jobs. So again, if you are really, really passionate about flight and you see yourself going that direction, AAE is probably the best choice for you. If you are just sort of into flight, then you could really go either way. Just knowing that we're going to prepare you specifically for those jobs in flight, um, in air, and in out of the atmosphere. But there is a lot of crossover between our degree and mechanical engineering. So it's kind of up to you personally what you think is going to be best. And hopefully, you guys have gotten a chance to go to some of the ME uh, presentations. And so you can look at their presentation and our presentation. You can also look at the plan of study and see which one you think is going to fit your um, desires and hopes and goals the best.
Okay. So, Soham, he's the one that was asking about the engineering breadth. Does plan on going into computer engineering. We can't tell you what's going to count for computer engineering. We can only tell you what's going to count for an AAE degree. So that question is best posed to ECE.
Yeah, so when you get into ECE, you can talk with your advisor and say, I know that I need to take a course for this requirement. I'm thinking about taking AAE because I find that interesting. And then they can tell you if that's a good idea.
Let's see, another question. Does not having ITAR clearance have any effect on courses?
Let me help there.
Okay.
The short answer is no, it has no effect. All our courses are open to all students, regardless of your nationality.
Karen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Karen Marie. I'm a professor here in Aeronautics and Astronautics. I'm actually the associate head for undergraduate studies as well. So I'm just kind of listening in here, looking a little bit.
Great. Another question, is there a recommended minor you suggest doing along with the AAE degree?
So what I always tell my students is that a minor is not required to get a job. So we are providing you with a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical and Astronautical Engineering. Provided is not the right word. You're earning it. So you have all that knowledge and those skills that earned you the degree. And so you're qualified for jobs within those industries. Now, the reasons to get a minor would be, do you have a passion in something that is outside of AAE? And that can be something from, history, where you want to take some history classes, to math, that's a little more science adjacent, physics, astronomy, things like that. So if you have a passion for those and you want to take those classes, then getting a minor can be a great way to do that. Another reason would be, again, you're talking to companies at career fairs and you're hearing them say, oh, we're looking for the type of person that has these skills. And it'd be great if they, had a math minor, or it'd be great if they had coding knowledge, or so on and so forth. So when you're talking with companies at career fairs, you're you're looking for an internship, but you're also looking to learn about the careers in the future and make sure that you're prepared for those. So you can say, I'm going for a bachelor of science in this degree. Do you think that there's a minor that I need or I should get to go along with that? And like I said, you can also look at job postings if you aren't able to get to a career fair, and you can see what knowledge they're expecting you to have. And then you can kind of make a decision. That being said, some of the most common minors for our students is math, because it only requires 2 additional courses because we already have a lot of math built into our plan of study. And then physics and astronomy are also very common in our major. But again, it's totally up to you whether you want to get a minor, whether you find value in that personally or professionally.
Another student asked, if I major in mechanical engineering, would I still be able to land a position in astronautical engineering?
Yeah, it's definitely an option. So just like there's crossover where some of our students will become mechanical engineers as their title, there's crossover the other way as well. If you look at other universities, a lot of times their Aero Astro program is kind of rolled into or is one and the same as their mechanical engineering program. So then there's people that have mechanical engineering degrees that are involved at all levels of aero and astro industry.
That's the last question I have at the moment.
I think those are some good questions.
Mhm.
If you want, I can go ahead and show the QR code
Yeah, that'd be
and
great. I'll
any
stop
last minute
sharing my
questions.
screen.
Can everyone see that?
I can see it, so I assume they can.
Yeah, I
Okay.
can see it as well.
So for any student that is having issues with the QR code, leave your name and Purdue email in the chat so that I can record the attendance. And did we have anything else to add, or students are usually free to go at this point if there are no more questions?
Yeah, if you do have questions, feel free to stick around. We'll stick around for just a little bit.
A question just popped up. You said that ME/AAE double major isn't allowed, but how difficult would it be to transfer from one to another if we change our minds?
So there is some overlap, but there are different courses that you will take starting right off in that sophomore first semester. So with any degree, if you're going to change majors, it's best to figure that out as soon as possible. So I would say if you're going into the T2M decision and trying to make a choice here, do as much research as you can and try to get that right decision, the first time. But we always do have students that want to change their mind later, and that's okay. The first step, no matter when you make that decision, is to meet with an advisor in that department. So you would, if you were wanting to come from ME to AAE, you would come or not physically come right now, but you would meet with an AAE advisor and say, I'm interested in, transitioning or CODOing. Change of degree objective is what CODO stands for at Purdue. And then they could talk to you about the major, what's going to count towards our major, and if it's going to put you behind or if you're still on track to graduate. So just communicating that as soon as you think you might want to switch.
It's also much more difficult to CODO as opposed to transitioning from first year engineering. The GPA tends to be higher to CODO.
Yeah, the requirement.
Yeah.
So with the transition to major deadline coming up, if you've been to these info sessions and you've heard talks from all different departments and you're still undecided, I would say talk with your FYE advisor, kind of bounce some ideas off of them and see what they say. And then you can also talk with your current professors. They're going to be a good resource as well. And then if you are in any clubs for those areas, because you can join clubs in any department, even as a freshman, even in FYE, you can join those clubs and you can talk to students who are in our major and find out what they like about it and why they picked AAE versus something else.
This is Professor Marie again. Maybe let me add on to that because I see a little bit of worrying about making sure you pick the right major. In the end, it doesn't really matter. So all the majors here at Purdue are very good. They're all going to set you up for a good career. So, you know, make your choice and pick something that looks interesting to you and that you're excited about. And then by definition, it's going to be a good choice. In particular, don't worry too much about aero versus mechanical engineering. Aerospace engineers do mechanical engineering jobs all the time and vice versa. Both of these degrees will prepare you very well for a career in aerospace. So no bad choices to make here, only good ones.
Any other questions? I mean, you guys are, once you do the QR, I believe you're free to go unless you have more questions.
So I can stop sharing and we can wait around for a few minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. You got both of our pop quiz questions right.